This talk tonight is, like a lot of them, it is related to the question of the week this week, and it's also related to, this time, the physicality of what we're doing in class. So it's it'll be real interesting to see how this all works out. But I'm going to start with this quote. So first of all, I'll tell you what the question of the week is. The question of the week is, are my environment and life organized in a way that empowers me? And this question, I think, Catherine, did you write this question? You must have. It's got the word organize in it. If you don't know, Catherine, Miss Macy is a wonderful professional organizer. And of course, I've seen firsthand, as have you in the dojo. If you saw the dojo before Miss Macy, you would see it was as organized as I could get it, which is to say, much more organized than my home, but not like it is today. And there is a huge difference that we notice in our lives and our experience of life when we are organized, and we are more powerful, we are more effective and more efficient. So this is not going to be a 45-minute long ad for professional organizing, but I'll say, if you got real problems, talk to Miss Macy. I'm gonna actually start off first of all with a few quotes from Marie Kondo, who is where I believe most people in America these days are getting their Eastern philosophy from. Is that on Netflix? It's a Netflix show about organizing. And I'll be fully honest, I've not seen a single episode, but I've heard a couple of quotes, and I kind of get the gist of why everybody loves it so much. So the most famous quote that I have heard from hers is, "Discard everything that does not spark joy." And this makes sense in the physical organization arena, in the way that I'm going to connect organization in your physical space and environment with your organization of your internal environment and your mind and your memories. This doesn't work as cleanly, but it still does make sense. I like this idea of discarding things. It's actually one of my favorite things to do, to move. And I've moved probably at this point like close to 20 times in my life, whether it's within the same town or across the country or whatever. I've gone across the country like 3 different times. And let me tell you, it's amazing because every time I move, I get rid of half of my stuff, and it's wonderful. It makes moving a lot easier, and there's just less junk in the way, right? And this is I think, one of the most empowering and simple things about organizing your physical space is there's just less stuff for you to worry about. This is like why the most spiritually adept and like, what's the word? Where you evolved, spiritually evolved people, the most with it people throughout history have been like renunciants. They don't have anything. They got the clothes on their back and nothing else, because it frees you up. You can spend your time and your energy on more important things like enlightenment and the way that you are with yourself and with your relationships and all that stuff. So I'm not telling you that you have to completely renounce all material possessions and get rid of them all, but I will say that it will help. Any degree of that you are able to take on will be helpful. And I understood this at a young age. I think I was 15 or 16 years old when I told my mom in a private conversation that is now going to be very public, that I said, "Mom, I reject your materialistic lifestyle." And my parents didn't have that much stuff, but I was just like starting to read up and be interested in this idea of not being so materialistic and not worried about having stuff, because when you're concerned about having stuff, you're just always looking for the next best thing, and there's no end to that. So it doesn't work very well. She says, Marie Kondo also says, never discard anything without saying thank you and goodbye. And I think that this is a really nice way of thinking of things because, we have this thing, whether it is a physical object or a relationship or a thought or an emotion, we have this thing for a reason. And it can be kind of abrupt to just say, like, I'm quitting this cold turkey and I'm gonna pretend that it never existed. And you might end up missing it. You might end up kind of resisting that and being more attached to it. But if you say thank you and goodbye, then you're being unattached and letting this go in a way that is much more smooth and I think lasting. When you have thoughts in your mind, I'll start to kind of get into the internal environment, because we want our internal environment also to be organized in the same way. If you have these thoughts that you're having a hard time letting go of, a lot of times the problem is your experience of trying to let go of a thought is more like you're pushing it away and you're resisting it. This resistance is what causes you to actually be more attached to it, and for it to stick with you longer, and for in a more kind of violent way. So instead of trying to resist and push away, we just say thank you and goodbye. We're meditating and a thought pops into our head and it's messing with our internal environment. I was sitting here and had a really nice peaceful meditation going with no thoughts, and then this thought rudely jumped into my consciousness. Instead of trying to beat it back away, I just recognize it as a thought. I say thank you and goodbye. I just let it right out. That's it. And you can do that with the most distressing thoughts, those things that pop into your mind and really take you out of the moment, really make it difficult for you to be calm and peaceful. You just accept it and you kind of absorb it and then just let it go. Thank you and goodbye. Marie Kondo also said, and this is not all going to be about Marie Kondo quotes, these are just the 3 that I pulled. So she says, the space in which we live should be for the person we are becoming now, not for the person we were in the past. And this is very true. This has to do with the things that we have in our space. This has to do with the way that our space is set up. And Sifu Brown says all the time, environment is stronger than will. And what we are surrounding ourselves with, and that includes the physical objects, and it includes the people, and it includes, the kind of energy of the space around us, that has a very big impact that is quite difficult to move beyond. So if we are trying to grow and make progress and change in a certain direction, we can actually think about, like, if I were this type of person, or I was in this kind of headspace, or in this space in my life, at this level, what would my physical space around me look like? What would I have and what would I not have? And just make your space like that. And then it's going to be really tough for you to not actually be that kind of person, You want to be more spiritually advanced, you get rid of your TV, and you get rid of the junk food, and you fill your space with inspirational books and inspirational people. They say that you're the average of the 3 people that you spend the most time with. And that's so true. And I would say you are what you eat, and you are what you read. And if you make your physical surroundings, your environment, match what you want your internal environment and you want yourself to grow into, then that is just massively powerful. This is the quote that we posted from the dojo's social media this week, I think earlier today. When you do things in the right way at the right time, everything else will be organized. and that's by Shunryu Suzuki. I talked to Catherine about this because I said it the first time, and I said, when you do things in the right way at the right time, everything else will be organized. And my first thought was like, wait a minute, what's left? If you're already doing everything in the right way at the right time, what else is there left to be organized? And Catherine said something along the lines of, well, if you're like, you do your laundry, and it comes out, and you fold your laundry, and you put it away, and that's it. Everything else is organized, and everything is going to move more smoothly with that, as opposed to what some of us do, which is the laundry comes out, and we just dump it onto the couch or onto the bed or whatever, and we say, like, okay, I'll deal with that later. I'm going to finish, eating or reading or whatever I'm doing right now that's so much more important than folding the laundry. And then it sits there, and sometimes it sits there for a little bit longer than we would like to admit. Sometimes we go to bed with that laundry still in a pile on the bed, and we just kind of sleep around it. And I haven't done that in many years, but I used to. This is just such a simple concept that I think if we start to recognize the simplicity and the power of just doing things like right away rather than putting them off, or doing things in the most efficient, effective amount of time, instead of waiting for another time that in your mind you're kind of hoping it will be easier, you'll feel like doing it later, and everything just works better. That's what this is all about on some level, is about making things work in your life. A great analogy that I heard, and this is where I got the idea of the name of the talk, are you tripping over garbage in your mind, is if you walk into your room or into your office on your desk and you see a piece of trash, it's a crumpled up piece of paper, you don't look at it and say, oh, I really should pick that up at some point and just walk past it. I mean, it's there, it's in your space, and you are the only person who's going to pick it up. Maybe at your office you've got a professional cleaning crew coming in later on, but it's there, it's on the middle of your desk, or it's like right there in the middle of your hallway at home. You're not going to wait for somebody else to do it because it's so absurdly simple and easy to just walk up to it, pick it up, throw it away, and then move on with your day. Part of the problem we have is we make other things that are really as easy and can be as simple and effortless as that. We make them into these big things. And all of that is this additional kind of angst and energy that we don't need to experience. As soon as you have the opportunity to put something in its place, you do it, and then you're able to move on. And there's no attachment to that. There's no being stuck with that. And if we could do that with our minds, in meditation, we're sitting, we have a thought, and we're just immediately able to let it go, right? Or we have these thoughts that keep coming back, these cycles of thought, and this lives as like anxiety, or this lives as a fear, this lives as something that we're angry about, and we're having a hard time getting beyond. This is essentially a piece of garbage that's sitting there in the middle of your mind. And every time you go to meditate, it's there. And it's like that piece of trash that's sitting there in the middle of the room. If it's there and you just pretend that it's not there, it's still going to be there every time you come back and look at it. And you're still going to have this experience of like, well, why is this here in my way, and why haven't I dealt with it yet? So what we can do is just deal with it. And that might take a few different forms in meditation. It's not as simple as I have this thought and it just disappears like a puff of smoke and it's just never coming back. Sometimes it will keep coming back. But this might mean that, I have a conversation, or I get the thing done that I need to get done. Whatever the thing is that's not working, or that's causing things to not work for me, I need to take that action so that it can clean out of my consciousness, so it's not constantly there when that meditation starts. And this is really, I think, what many people's experience of their internal environment is very cluttered, is filled with garbage, and we're tripping all over it, right? You're trying to focus on something, whether it be meditation or work or anything else that you're trying to focus on, and this other stuff keeps getting in the way. These other thoughts keep coming back, and we need to really work on and cultivate having that clear mind, having that mind that is free of clutter. And meditation in and of itself can help with that. And the other activities or things that we do to just clear up all this space in a more lasting way, I think are super, super important things to do. I want to talk, this is going to seem kind of to be totally different, and I had a way to tie it back into this, and I hope I can come back to that at some point. But the physical thing that we're focusing on this week, the challenge of the week is to work on a flying kick, to learn a flying kick, which some of you should not do because you'll end up in the hospital. But if you can do it, try. Learn a flying kick. And the way that I am working this into class is more of like a study of momentum and a study of motion. And we're not just doing one kick, we're like doing combinations of movements. And you want to think of this in terms of physical flow is a pretty easy way to get it, where you start making your center move in one direction, and you can keep throwing techniques, punches and kicks and spinning, whatever. Same thing on the ground. You pick a direction, you flow in it, and this is going to help us create a natural way of moving that is free flow through the body, through the consciousness, where we are not in the way. The problem that people have with this drill is they try to think their way through it, and they try to create pieces that they think will fit together. And there is certainly a time and a place for that. There are times in your practice where you need to actually stop and think and understand the details of a technique and see how things will fit together. But there is also a time and a place that is really what we're focusing on this week, which is beyond thought and kind of methodology and logic, and it is just feeling. So if you feel the way that your body is flowing, you feel the way that your center is moving, and you don't stop that, but instead you feed off of it, and you allow it to move your body, and you allow those techniques to flow through you, rather than trying to think your way through it. This is a very different way of experiencing your body. And it's a way that, unfortunately, very few people get a chance to experience in life. They haven't practiced martial arts, Tai Chi. They haven't done something where they're able to kind of get into that flow state with their mind and with their body. They experience this for the first time, and like when I experienced it for the first time, I stopped, unfortunately, and my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh, that was it. And it is such an incredible feeling, and unfortunately kind of quite rare for many of us. So it is something that, again, we want to cultivate and allow to happen, allow it to flow through us. When we recognize that we are trying to think our way through it, we need to set that aside and just actually focus on the feeling of the body. When we focus on that, then it will happen. It will happen as it flows through us. And the way that this is going to work with organization is pretty simple. If you're trying to flow through a physical space and there's garbage in your way, there's some kind of a physical impediment, you will not be able to flow. This is what you're going to recognize, a big change in your life will come from being better organized, and the way that you're able to efficiently move from one thing to the next or continue on one task because there's not so much junk in the way. That's the same way that it should be in our minds, where we are able to mentally flow and not be tripped up by these same things that keep coming up. So in meditation, we try to flow with the breath. We allow the breath to come in and out, and we allow our mind to flow with that. We focus on the physical sensation of the breath. And when something shows up in our mind and gets in the way, rather than fighting against it, we just allow it to move off to the side. We say thank you and goodbye, and then we continue the flow. And the truth of this is, it's very unlikely that in our physical practice or in our internal practice that we will be able to do this for the entirety of a drill or the entire amount of time that we're trying to set aside to do this task or to focus on this thing. You're gonna attempt it, and then you'll get jogged out of it. And what there is for us to do is recognize that as just another opportunity for us to work on letting that go, and then flow as immediately and effortlessly back into that state as possible. So I want to talk just a little bit about one of the masters of flow, Ueshiba Sensei. So if you guys have not read Art of Peace, you should read it. It's a wonderful book. And the first quote that I'm going to read is, I think, the second quote in this book, which has very little to do with what I'm talking about at all, but it's like my favorite quote from Ueshiba. He says, "One does not need buildings, money, power, or status to practice the art of peace. Heaven is right where you are standing, and that is the place to train." And every time I read that, it gets me, because this really hits on the spirit of our practice. First of all, anybody should be able to practice. You should not need money. You should not need status. You don't even need. You need 10 square feet of room in your closet in your apartment at home, or just run outside and practice in a park, whatever. All you need is the will to do it, and the recognition that this place and this time is heaven, and it is perfect, and you don't need anything else. And in fact, there could not possibly be a better time or a better place or a better situation to practice or to just live. This is it. And this is really what our practice teaches us. This is what mindfulness is all about. This is what being in the present is all about, is a recognition of the perfection of this moment and the fact that we need nothing else. And, the first part of the quote kind of talks about the idea of being able to let go of the need, the attachment to those physical things and status and all of that. That's not going to help you practice martial arts. It's going to weigh you down. Mo money, mo problems. You just need to let it go and be in this moment, right? In this moment, nothing else gets in our way. And it is the perfect place and time to practice and to live. So the other quotes have a little bit more to do with flow. So this is, if you're keeping score at home, on page 37. He says, "Do not fail to learn from the pure voice of an ever-flowing mountain stream splashing over the rocks." And we use this analogy or metaphor of water all the time, and this is certainly a great way to look at the physical way that we flow in our practice. The never-ending power and ability to flow around those objects that get in our way, around those impediments. Water doesn't flow one direction, show up to a rock in the middle of the riverbed and stop and think well, now what am I going to do? This stupid rock is in my way. It doesn't know how to do that. The water just flows around it. And this is one of the many ways that we want to be like water, is to not even really have the ability to be stopped and to confuse ourselves and trip ourselves up by thinking who put this rock here? Why is this thing in my way? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Maybe you put it there. Maybe somebody else put it there. Maybe the rock was there, when the world was created. Who cares? what we want to be able to focus on is our ability to flow around it, which doesn't come from logical mind. It doesn't come from the ego. The ego's only thing that it can do is place blame on this and think about how much easier it would be if this rock wasn't there in the first place. But when we flow, we're in this state of mushin, when the ego is not there and in charge, the rock may as well not even exist. We just find the space right next to it or above it or below it or whatever, and naturally assume that shape and position and continue to go through. So our physical flow should be the same way, right? Somebody is throwing a technique at us or doing something that the ego sees as a problem, and we instead just take it and we seize that opportunity and flow, right? Every rock that shows up in our way just kind of launches us around in a new direction. We want to feel like we're picking up speed and power and flowing more perfectly as that pure stream does. The last quote is on the very next page, and this one says, "The art of peace originates with the flow of things. Its heart is like the movement of the wind and waves. The way is like the veins that circulate blood through our bodies, following the natural flow of the life force. If you are separated in the slightest from that divine essence, you are far off the path." And, our body is of nature. And we try to make it something else. We try to separate ourselves from nature. We try to confuse it. And we try to separate ourselves. That's like what the ego's job is on some level, right? When we are connected with the natural state of our body and of our consciousness, we are one with everything around us. We are one with that breath in that moment. We're one with every molecule of air that comes in and out. We are one with the ground that we're on, with the trees and all of that stuff. And when we're one with that moment, that is the most perfect experience of nature and reality. True recognition of what is going on is recognition that there is no separation, there is no thing in reality that keeps us from being able to be totally connected to every other person in our life, every other physical thing, and every moment. Every moment flows from one right into the next if we don't stop it from happening. Every breath flows from one right into the next if we don't stop it, if we don't get in the way and start to judge. So just look at yourself. Look at the veins that are perfectly pumping blood through your body, and the lungs that are perfectly taking in and letting out air, and everything that is just natural. One of my favorite parts of The Way of the Peaceful Warrior is when the main character, Dan, he has met Socrates, who's to become his teacher, and Socrates is trying to kind of help him through something, and he says, do something that's really incredible with your body. Do something amazing with your body. And so Dan, who is a gymnast, I forget what it is, I think he does a backflip or something really cool and very difficult, and he kind of lands and he goes like, that's right, that's like, you thought that I couldn't do something that amazing, right? And Socrates goes, that's pretty impressive. And then he walks into the bathroom and kind of hangs out there for a second, and then Dan hears the toilet flush, and then he walks back out, and he says, now that was amazing. And Socrates explains, my body just took in nutrients from the water, it processed it, through my kidneys and my bladder, and then I passed it right through, and all of this, incredible, totally natural stuff. I mean, look, you gotta spend a lot of time and effort and hit your head on the ground many times in order to do a backflip. But nobody, I mean very few people, have to work hard to go to the bathroom. It's something that just kind of happens, right? And it is incredible what goes into that, the beauty of it, the way that we are connected to the earth and the physical space around us. Don't think too much about the physical space around you when you're going to the bathroom, but you get the idea, right? This is just being one with the natural state of your body and allowing things to flow, quite literally. And there's nothing else that we need to do to appreciate and experience the beauty and perfection of our bodies in this world and of each moment. There's nothing that needs to happen beyond appreciating every natural thing that our body does, and to really just become one with the natural flow, the natural state of things. Recognizing that anything that stands in that way is something that in some sense we can kind of just organize by placing it where it belongs. In the physical environment, in our mental environment, our internal environment. We can put those thoughts and emotions and attachments where they belong, and then the flow can just continue again. And we want to think of our meditation in some way as a practice of doing that, of recognizing these things that are disorganized in our internal environment. And instead of beating ourselves up for it, instead of allowing our flow to be stopped, we just place it off to the side in a nice, neat shelf where it fits perfectly, along with all of those other logical thoughts that are very important for us to come back to later on, and then just continue the flow. Like you walk into that room, you see that piece of trash, you pick it up and you put it right where it belongs. It's as simple as that. So, as you sit tonight, recognize that and think of each thought not as, an offensive piece of trash that somebody put there, because it was probably you that put it there in the first place, but think of it as just another item to place where it belongs. If it's something you need to come back to, put it neatly up on the shelf where it fits perfectly, or if it's something that there is to let go of, say thank you and goodbye, and let it go, and then come back to this moment and this breath. Sit comfortably.